Hi, I'm Sean Hayes. If you live with epilepsy, it is important to be aware of any conditions or activities that may trigger your seizures. For example, sometimes lack of sleep or too much stress can bring about a seizure. Here are some tips on how to help you manage your seizures.
First, I want to ask you, just talk about what are triggers, but also can they change from adolescence into adulthood?
Oh, sure. So triggers are things that may predispose somebody to have a seizure. The most common trigger is actually one that we don't know too much about, which is people say stress. So stress means a lot of different things to different people. But a trigger is something in the environment that might make it more likely that somebody would have a seizure. So sometimes it's hard to define a trigger or hard to identify a trigger because it doesn't always trigger. So you might have something like staying up all night or maybe drinking some alcohol, which can be triggers for a lot of people. But if it doesn't trigger every time, people say, well, maybe it is a trigger, maybe not. So sometimes they're kind of hard to identify.
So if somebody is light sensitive or sensitive to games, to flashing lights,
Right.
would that also be a trigger?
Certainly. So it's sort of widely thought about that flashing lights are a common trigger for seizures, but actually it's only a subgroup of people with seizures, certain types of seizures that are really light triggered. Most people with seizures aren't triggered by flashing lights. But then again, some people will tell me about certain triggers that they have. And what I know is that stress is a trigger. So if you think something's a trigger, that might create a stressful response, and the stress itself is really, creates the seizure. And then you think, oh my gosh, every time I see my mother-in-law, I have a seizure.
Right. Well, that we know is stressful.
Right.
Okay, that for sure. My mother-in-law is a trigger. I just call her trigger.
Get started now. Need everyone to talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it.